Our next speaker is Ryan, and he's going to share sustainable development.
Ni hao, Shanghai. Good to be here. I'm Ryan Fox. I am the BitShares coordinator for the core team. So my role here with the team is to more or less be the project manager. I work with Abit, Alfredo, Takanator, Tamami, and Peter Conrad, and then also John Jones, and we make up the core team. And what I want to share with you today is talking about what has allowed me to be here on this stage, which is a worker proposal. So we'll talk about sustainable development using the worker proposal, which is funded by another feature of the Graphene blockchain called the reserve pool. So it's pretty exciting to think that I can be here to truly be funded by the blockchain because of features inside of Graphene. And I want to let all of you know out there, all other Graphene developers, as you consider projects that you want to make for yourselves, and other business developers who want to consider creating your own blockchain, that you can use these features here to attract and retain development teams, marketers, and any other community members who you value in the blockchain, and use this worker proposal. All right? So let's see if I can figure out the big green button. Good. All right. So here's quickly kind of what we're going to go over here. I'm going to start by giving a quick background on some blockchain fundamentals so that we can establish what is meant by the reserve pool. And then I'll go through and explain how the worker proposal actually works. And then ultimately, we'll talk about the punchline, funding, development, and much more. No, that's the wrong way. Here we go. All right, we're going to build a blockchain. So if you want to build a blockchain, you got to have somebody do it, right? Here's our blockchain builder. And what he's going to do is take a look for a place to actually build this blockchain. And it's important to choose the proper place to put your blockchain. We're going to put this on an island, on Consensus Island, because everything that happens here on the blockchain has to be agreed to by everybody else on that island. So we'll put our blockchain there, right? The first thing that we're going to do is start to write some code. We've got a couple of really important parameters that we need to configure first. The first one is going to be the total number of tokens that can be issued on Consensus Island. And we're going to represent that with a hole in the island. We're going to get a shovel and we're going to dig a hole to contain all of the possible tokens that are ever going to be issued on our blockchain. Once we've done that, we're going to take that shovel and throw it off of the island. And we're going to tell our code that a shovel can never exist on this island ever again. This hole is fixed. Total number of tokens ever. We're going to fill up that hole with all of the tokens that are ever going to be available. And then we can take that, then the next important parameter that we need to configure is a method to extract those tokens out of the reserve pool and bring them up onto Consensus Island where all of our users are going to exist. So we'll use this bucket to represent our puzzle. Our block producers are going to use this, right? So we'll take this code, stick it into our blockchain, turn it on, and let's see who shows up. Well, the first guy to show up is going to be the block producer, right? And he's going to take that bucket and dip it into the reserve pool and pull it out because he's interested in making sure that he can reward himself with new tokens from the reserve pool. The only way that we're going to do this on Consensus Island is with validation. And if everybody on Consensus Island agrees that he has the authority as the block producer to take those tokens and give them to himself, we'll do that. Now, our miner or our block producer now has tokens for himself. That'll probably attract some other users to the island because that's pretty cool technology, right? So we'll see that the block producer can now take those tokens and move them around to others. We've got marketers, we've got other developers, we've got traders, we've got all sorts of interesting people here. One thing that I want you to note is the fact that when they're moving these tokens around, when transactions are happening on this island, that the reward is going back to that miner, all right? This reserve pool here is one way at this time. It only can take out, all right? So this is really what the state of blockchain was through about 2013, all right? This can represent Bitcoin. That hole was 21 million. Right now, we've got 17 million of them taken out of there, so there's 4 million left in there. That's kind of the state up until about 2013. And then people started talking about, yeah, you know, Bitcoin's kind of cool and the technology that's under there. I bet we could do more with just having a simple cryptocurrency. Maybe we could, you know, build something on top of it. Maybe we could change the proof of work or consensus algorithm. And so in 2013, I started reading and listening to an early Bitcoin enthusiast named Dan Larimer, and also the writings of his father. And they got together with a young cryptographer named Charles Hoskinson, and they began building and writing about what would later on become BitShares. So Dan and the team started looking at a different way to do it. And so they wanted a blockchain that was going to have a different consensus algorithm. What they did, and also one other important thing that Dan wanted to do, was to actually put an application on top of this blockchain, right? Wanted to build a financial services platform that could operate on top of that blockchain. So put that into the code, and then also changed out the consensus algorithm. So here we have a different bucket. We have a blue bucket instead of that wood bucket that we saw before. But basically, this is the same. We turned that one on, and the BitShares blockchain started in 2014. And of course, we see that the same people show up, right? We've got our block producer sending tokens around to all of the other users. And the thing that I want you to know now about what is different about BitShares than what we saw earlier with Bitcoin is that when these tokens transfer around, the fees that are paid to allow that to happen actually go back into the reserve pool. So we get this circular flow of the block producers receive a reward for validating their blocks, but also the fees then are paid back to the reserve pool. All right, well, one thing that happened here is that we still have the same method for taking the tokens out of the reserve pool. They're still only going to the block producer. And the development team here was underfunded and was having a hard time moving BitShares forward with the development. So the team decided that they would take a look at doing it in a different way. So about 2014, some of the developers of BitShares started a new entity called Cryptonomics. And they began taking what was BitShares and extending it more, and this would now become Graphene. So what they did here was take everything that we had before and then add it in here, all right? We're gonna keep that same consensus algorithm. We're gonna take everything that was BitShares and we're gonna add one more thing. This is going to be our worker proposal. This new red bucket here is actually a new way to take tokens out of that reserve pool and bring them onto our consensus island, give them out to arbitrary people on the island, not just the existing block producers, right? So we're familiar with that. The block producers know how to do it. But now what Dan and the team did says, okay, we'll use the red bucket, and if everybody agrees that it's okay that this worker is valid, then these tokens can be delivered to, in this case, the developer. And it could be such that anybody could come to the island, anybody could create themselves a worker proposal and use that red bucket and be rewarded. So that's built into Graphene, and that anybody now can make use of this. And it really has helped us be able to do exciting things with our continued development. All right, so there we are. So then the BitShares blockchain then did the pitchfork in 2015, and we turned that on, and this is the state of what BitShares 2.0 looks like today, right? All right, so now we want to talk a little bit about the punchline here, this idea of the worker proposal. And there are two parts to the worker proposal. First of all, you need your intent, and this is going to be what you write and what you tell people about. So in the case of the core team, at the beginning of this calendar year, I began talking amongst the community and said, hey, I would like to give back to the BitShares community by becoming a project manager. And I have this idea to do that. So I wrote it up, and I rang up the BitShares Blockchain Foundation, and I said, this is what I want to do. And they said, Ryan, you got a good start, but you're going to have to make some modifications to it. And we iterated for a little while all of this on paper to make sure that I would be successful with what it was that I wanted to do, and that the BitShares Blockchain Foundation would support what it was that I want to do. Simultaneously, I'm out there talking in the community and saying, well, this is what my intent is. Could I get your support? Because the only way that this worker proposal is going to go forward is if the community members are going to vote for me. So behind the scenes, working on this, had it translated into Mandarin to make sure that I could communicate globally. And finally, I did the second part, which is then to take an action. And the action is, looks like this, right? So here, abstract code here, but using the command line wallet, you could do an operation called create worker proposal. And that takes everything that's in the written language over there and just represents that as the URL, okay? So now everybody can read what it is, what my intent is. And then I need to have just a couple of other parameters filled out in here. So I got to give it a name, I got to give it a start date and an end date, and then the worker gets paid every day. So I had to define how many BitShares should be taken out of that reserve pool and then given to my to the developer account. And then there's this concept of a vesting period. We just set that to 0, because then it'll give it to us straight away. Okay, so now let's take a look at how it actually works. So there are, I think, 5 different parts to this. So we talked about this idea of a daily budget. So what this means is that each day there's a blockchain parameter that is set that determines how much all of the worker proposals can fund. And so what that looks like here is that we'll see we have our red bucket, which is our worker proposal, our worker method for taking coins out of the reserve pool, right? And you can set this daily budget to be an arbitrary number. The committee sets this, and as you saw there, if you make, back one more time, yes, here we are. If we make it in motion, right? If you make that daily budget bigger, it's going to draw out of the reserve pool more quickly, all right? Set it smaller, you wouldn't be able to drain the reserve pool as quickly. All right, now the next thing is going to be voting. So you have to have this concept of approving the intent and approving that worker proposal. And everybody who holds BitShares, in this case, has the ability to vote with theirs, or set their proxy and encourage their proxy to vote for the worker proposals that are out there. Next. All right, so I guess this is what it looks like here, so voting, right? So next thing that we have to do is tally up those votes. So we're going to use a scale to represent how we tally these votes up. And we're going to take every worker proposal and we're going to put it on the scale, and we're going to see how much support it has, okay? So there it has blue level of support. The next one is going to have orange level of support, and our third worker proposal has green level of support. Now remember those colors, we're going to see those on the next screen here, right? There's all of our representations of our different worker proposals that are out there. Now we must rank them. All right, so in order to rank them, we're going to take all of the existing worker proposals and organize them from the highest ranking up at the top down to the lowest ranking at the bottom. So remember, the green one was weighted the highest. It was highest on the scale, right? So we see that one up at the top, the blue one down at the bottom. All right, now we're going to go through here and evaluate these, because it's time to distribute it's time to distribute the tokens now to all of the available workers. So what we'll see is that we've dipped the consensus bucket into the reserve pool, and we brought it out, and now we're going to evaluate if we have enough tokens in the bucket. Yes, the top one, it's got full. So we'll distribute a few, reducing just a little bit of the amount from the bucket, and then we'll go down to the next one. And we'll take a look. We got enough in there to pay that one out. Great. We'll move down to the next one, and we found out that when we paid out the orange one, we ran out of funds. Okay, so the bucket is now empty for this day. So the bucket goes away. When it continues on and evaluates the next one, there isn't enough left, right? So these will not be funded. So this is what's important. If you're going to create a worker proposal, you must earn enough votes to be moved above that red threshold line, right, where we see where all of the other coins are distributed. In fact, in this orange line here, perhaps it wasn't even fully funded, because when the bucket runs out, all of it will be distributed to the last one. All right, so that's basically how this worker proposal works. And there are two ways that you would be distributing these, or two places that you would be distributing these. Typically, you're going to be distributing them to your to your worker account, right? Because you're going to use these funds to pay for your development work. But the other way is that we have another worker which is defined as the refund worker, and what this one does is takes all of the coins that it collects and puts them back into the reserve pool. So you'll see in BitShares that we have a refund worker. I think it's worth 400,000 coins each day, and so you must get your worker proposal higher than that refund worker, or else you won't have any left when yours gets evaluated. All right, the last thing that you could do is actually burn them, meaning that you would get rid of them totally from the ecosystem. All right, so why would you want to use this? Well, I think I talked quite a bit about the project development. That makes sense, right? Our team is making use of this and having success using it. But you could also use it for other items such as polling. So you could ask the community, what do you think about this? And the core team used this when we talk about our BitShares improvement protocol, improvement proposals. We send those out, the BSIPs, right? We ask the community to vote for, do you want us to implement this feature on the blockchain? Should we develop this, yes or no? So we make a special worker. It doesn't pay anything. It's just, it's evaluated, and as long as it achieves enough votes, then we say that yes, this one should be developed. And of course, you could use it for anything that you want. You could use this for marketing. Actually, we saw Chris earlier talk about that he was going to create a worker proposal in order to get funding for his upcoming conference. We see the BitShares Blockchain Foundation using it to fund the research, the funding that they're doing so that they can go out and talk to the legal counsel, right? So we can use this for many different things, whatever it is that you want. All right, so that is what it's all about for sustainable development. And so I'll wrap up here and just let you know that the BitShares core team is always looking for contributors to come and join our team. We want to make sure that we are open across the globe, and we invite anybody here who is interested in BitShares to come to the GitHub repository, take a look at our issues, and join in. We have the ability to compensate you using this worker proposal, so we look forward to collaborating with you. Thanks very much.